Hi, everybody. I'm Barry Kostrinsky. This is ATOA, Artist Talk on Art. We're a 501c3, and we've been around since 1975, doing our talks in person in the Lower West Side of New York City, obviously given the need for distancing during COVID. This has been our response, and this is now our 78th virtual talk with maybe 1 or 2 breaks for holidays. Thank you. I first want to thank our organizers today. We have Linda DeGusta and Christopher Stout, who both organized this jointly, and also Christopher Stout, who will moderate this presentation. ATOA, we're a 501c3. If you're not on our mailing list and would like to be, feel free to enter information in the chat or look at our website, atoanyc.org, for details and to sort of sign up. And as well, if you'd like to make a contribution, we have several ways, and it's on our website on just about every page. This talk is being recorded. It will end up on our YouTube channel, probably in a day or two. And as well, our website has a calendar that shows talks that are to come. So I am going to hand it over to Christopher Stout. Again, I want to thank all the artists for coming here. We have an exciting and deep presentation tonight involving artist galleries. I won't say much more except thank you, Christopher, and we look forward to the presentation.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here, and it is an honor to share this panel with people that I've worked with, some for years and know and love. In thinking about what we're going to talk about, I wrote a short little abstract. Some of New York City's most storied art spaces are founded and directed by visual artists. Artists Talk on Art will host an engaging panel discussion with some of these insiders who will share learnings and experiences from parallel careers in both roles. This talk is organized by Linda DeGusta and moderated by myself, with esteemed panelists Kathleen Vance, Daniel Aycock, Monica Wurhrer, Randall Harris, and Michael Gormley. And to start this out, let's understand who we're talking to, who's in the room. If each panelist, and I'll call you by roster, could just do a couple, 2 or 3 minutes and talk about what it means to you to be an artist, what kind of work you're making, and then shift over into what it means to be a gallerist, and just talk about how many years you've been making art, how many years you've been as a gallerist, and what your program, your gallery program specializes. If you could do that as shortly and briefly as possible. And let's start with Kathleen.
Well, great. Thank you so much for having me here today. And a big thank you for Christopher for moderating this. So again, yeah, I'm Kathleen Vance. I am an environmental artist. I do sculpture and installation based with natural materials. A lot of my work deals with water rights, land protection, ecology, and just in a basic way to give people an idea of how to bring nature back into their everyday life. I am also the co-director of the Front Room Gallery, and the Front Room Gallery has been in operation for over 20 years. It was founded by Daniel Aycock in the late 90s, and Randall Harris, who I'm really excited to be on the panel with, remembers us from Williamsburg. We were part of the Williamsburg Gallery Association together. And in the last few years, we moved to the Lower East Side. And our program focuses, about 50% of our program is contemporary photography. And the other component of our gallery program is painting, installation, drawing, and other modalities, you know, of making art. And because of my personal artist practice and interest in environmental work, a lot of our gallery programming has to do with environmental issues there. So we As a curatorial team, Daniel and myself look for artists that, you know, do have social commentary about current events, and especially now with climate change, that becomes like a big part of what we're looking at and showcasing within the artists that we're presenting.
Thank you so much. Randall, can you take the same question?
I'm not, can you guys hear him? I don't think his microphone is on.
No, I can't hear him.
I'm gonna let Randall figure out how to enable his microphone. Michael, in the interim, do you want to answer the question?
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Michael Gormley, and I'm an artist, and I'm the executive director of New York Artists Equity Association and Equity Gallery. I'll just talk briefly about my own work. I do, let's see, I'm gonna do a fancy screen share. Can you see, let's see. Can you see that painting there? Is that showing up?
Give it a second. Yep. Yes, it is.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so I do a lot of work at the shore, at beaches. I was raised in the Irish Riviera in Breezy Point, so I love the beach and I just love the water. And I use these plein air paintings to create what I think are just very big gay paintings. And I sort of arrived at these paintings. This is very large, about 6 feet by 4 feet. And it's meant to be sort of a safety gate around Fire Island. I had somebody to my studio probably about 20 years ago, who shall go unnamed. And he said, oh, we can't show your work is much too gay. And then I thought, oh, that became my, how can I make it more gay? So I'm, sort of looking at carotids and classical art. And the story behind this is a series of 4 paintings. They're each representing one of the directions. In the 50s, Fire Island was often raided. And so I sort of came with this mythology that if it had guardian angels and that had protected that space, this kind of is what it would look like. So these are my big gay paintings. And now I'm going to jump into equity. So what should happen is carousel. Can you see the carousel just sort of moving? It gives you something pretty to look at while I'm chatting. Good, okay. So Equity was founded in 1947. It's not my founding. It was founded by a group of very prestigious artists who believed that artists were best positioned to help other artists. And we have continued with that mandate. So the artists that helped found it were, among them, Edward Hopper, Kobayashi, sort of a who's who of pre-war artists. So it's a membership association. We have roughly about 400 members, and we really try to focus on showing artists that are emerging, re-emerging, sort of end period in their career, that the world needs to see. We are totally stylistically agnostic, as was our founders. So we have a very wide and diverse range of works. We have a really active online program. So we have a marketplace, and we both do sort of a very active online program and a very active bricks and mortar program. We also do shows off-site. So we're doing a show called Silver, which is opening on DFN projects, and that has a more classical sort of silver bend. We also run a portrait studio, and the show that just, let me see if I can get that to stop for a minute, so you can get a little more of an in-depth dive. So this just closed, and this show was put together by Christopher Stout, Alan Hansen, and Miguel Otero Fuentes. And it should go to the online showroom. There we go. And you can kind of see some of it. Here's Alan's work. Here's Christopher's work. And the reason I'm showing this is also a big part of Equity Galleries. We believe that artists should also be curators. And so we invite our member artists to come curate shows, and we also do workshops around curation. So we try to support it with educational programming, so that again, that artists are empowered And there becomes another space within the larger art world ecosystem that's, we think, is a little radical, but sort of gives another opportunity. So there's my dog and pony show for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Monica, would you like to go next?
Yeah. Maybe if somebody
I don't think she's ready.
could talk. Yeah,
No problem. What about Ellen?
I can also go. So, I am an artist that has, before the term I have done art that was socially engaged before the term socially engaged was really floating around like it does right now. And so I created like a lot of exhibitions and curated shows basically that involved a lot of people, artists, but also just random ideas for kind of like talking about social issues and through art. And so now I also created then open source gallery also because social art kind of wasn't yet a thing that was really easy to come around in New York City. And so I 15 years ago, I created this gallery that shows artists from all over the world. Lots of them do socially engaged arts. The space is very, very raw and is kind of like an indoor-outdoor situation, a garage with two big garage doors that open basically to all the elements. So we do installation work and a lot of political work and a lot of socially engaged work.
Thank you so much. Ellen, can you go next?
Sure.
Hi.
I'm gonna share the screen. Let's see here if I can. So I'm Ellen Hackl Fagan. Thanks very much for inviting me onto this panel. And hi, everybody. Most of you I've not seen in person since we got into COVID. So it's really lovely to see your faces again. I run Odetta Gallery. I created it in 2014 in Bushwick and have moved it around a few times because of real estate pricing. And ultimately with the pandemic, I've put the gallery into virtual space specifically for now. And I am doing as an independent curator for Odetta Gallery. I've got proposals in spaces and you'll start to see some activity in physical spaces in 2022. Some spaces I'm really excited about. So I'm very happy to say that I'm a painter who works with the connection between color and sound. It's been a lifelong pursuit of mine because I just am gonzo for color and gonzo for music. So those two things just kept coming together, probably through dance. I danced throughout my life, would like to get back into dance again and singing. And I just feel like that vibration that gets set up through repeated movement or singing or molecules moving in the air when instruments are being played or bouncing out of speakers, all of that then creates a sensate environment and enables me to build relationships between color and sound. My current show that I'm in, you all are welcome to attend. I'm very excited by it. It's called Painting by Proxy at Project Art Space and is curated by Joan Grubin. And Joan is just smart as can be. I just love her writing. I loved her vision and the artists that she paired me with, Stephen Main and Annika Farouk and her husband, David Driscoll. Ironically, all of us artists are based in both Connecticut and New York. And I don't think that Joan was thinking about that at all, but it happened. Painting by Proxy, the thesis behind it is artists who create work without a brush, without the hand being evident. So again, if you've got some free time and you find yourself near 29th Street and Madison Avenue, the exhibition has been extended through January 15th. And we are going to be open on occasional Saturday afternoons. This Saturday is the first one. Stephen Main will kick it off just to be on hand to meet people. I think he's there from 1 to 3. And we're putting me in sometime in December. So my artwork that I am focused on and have been for the last 7 years or so is a series because there's this beautiful blue pigment that I found. It lays on a surface like a dream. And the series is called Seeking the Sound of Cobalt Blue. And pretty much anything that this paint touches becomes jewel-like and has a very matte surface. So I can't get enough of it. So this is just a look at the website of some of the current work. So Odetta, that was a 35-year wanting in me to create an opportunity to put artists together and develop my narrative skills. I think a lot about color. I think a lot about minimalism, painting, and the conversation that develops between artists when their work is on view. And in the past, go to my archive, Odetta in Bushwick, I created that space.
Ellen, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I'm only seeing one slide up on the screen. No images have changed. Is that correct?
Oh, excuse me. Thanks for telling me.
Sure.
All right, let me go back. Now we're getting technical.
You may have to get out of screen share and get back in order to show different images.
Thanks for letting me know that.
Sure.
And I'll try not to. Okay, this is it. Can you? I'm assuming you can see that now. Yeah.
Yes. Now we're seeing a website scrolling.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
So I had an opportunity to do a lot of large-scale sculptural installations in Odetta in Bushwick. That was a space that I built out. And the last, one of the last shows there was part of a two-parter around the concept of Las Gravitas. So it could be about the seriousness of things, the weight of things, but it also could be the formal aspects of how artists use gravity in their work. So this second phase, Las Gravitas, was called Falling into Place and was predominantly sculpture. And now with the pandemic, I pivoted and moved into Odetta Digital. And I've run online on Artsy through the Shim Art Network. I believe I'm at my 6th exhibition with this now. And I have a wonderful roster of artists. There's about 80 artists working with me on Odetta Digital. And predominantly, all I want to do is help facilitate right now how artists get their work shown and to empower them to take the reins on their digital media presentations of their work. And it's been very successful. We've been using Instagram as a tool to point to exhibitions on Artsy, because as most of you know, Artsy is like a sea. And how do you find artwork in this sea without really pointing to what you are looking specifically for? So we do this with Instagram and do group launches, which galvanizes a community much in the same way that you're doing with Artist Talk on Art, Barry. You get some people working together on a common goal, and you see a lot of positive energy and confidence that stems from that in artists. So we have 2 exhibitions up right now running concurrently with Odetta Digital, and we'll be closing down one and opening a new one mid-December, and I'm working on that title right now. Odetta Digital is a membership-based entity for now, and just felt like the way that I could continue working with artists in spite of lockdown. And my greatest joy, I think, as a curator is when I put artwork together and artists meet one another through their work, through the eyes of this third party. It's like I'm a yenta for artists. And I find that true friendships develop when artists have had a chance to work together based strictly on the love of the aspects of their work. So that has continued to be my deepest joy as a curator. And that's all I've got for now.
Thank you. Randall, I want to go back to you. Were you able to make the sound?
Can you hear me at all?
Oh, yes, we can. Thank you. This is great.
Good. Okay, I guess we're all set then. Thank you again. My name's Randall Harris. I have been an artist since the early 80s, and mostly working with oil pastels and pencil, a lot of drawing and line work. In 2000, I opened Figureworks Gallery in Williamsburg, and we just celebrated our 20th anniversary after having to have postponed it for a year. The gallery is heavily focused on figurative art, clearly Figureworks. And most of my artists are local Brooklyn artists, and we do, again, a wide range of figurative works, from sculpture, painting. My work gets involved with the gallery through life drawing sessions. We do weekly life drawing sessions, which I monitor and host. And so we do exhibitions with that, as well as solo exhibitions for all of my artists as well. And that's about where I am right now.
Love it. We also have a panelist, Daniel, who's going to join us in a bit, but let's proceed and do an interactive group. Start our interactive questions. So question 1 for the full panel. There are many people in New York who call themselves artists. There are also many people in New York who call themselves gallerists. Why do you need to do both? Anyone could kick it off.
Hi, sure.
Can you repeat that? What do you need? Why do you need to do both? Or what was
Yes.
what do you mean both? Why do you be a gallerist and an artist? Is that the
Yes.
question? Oh. I don't believe you can be a gallerist and an artist. I think you can only be an artist. And try to find a gallerist who shows your work. That's what I believe.
Okay, that's great. I'm sort of doing both, so I don't know if there's a rule there that one can't, but I'm breaking the rule at the current moment. I think I don't know how it happened. It was more organic for me. It came out of being an editor of an art magazine, and I felt I was uniquely suited to write about art because I was making it, and I think I was reaching my magazine was largely for artists and about artists. And then I was asked to curate shows just as sort of an organic outgrowth of that practice. And it just made sense to me because all my friends are artists, and I just had an intimate connection with them, and it was an easy reach. So I think I have to do both. If I don't paint and then I'm showing my friends' work, I just get angry. It's sort of like, well, why am I giving you all the attention? So it's just an ego thing, that the reason why I keep making work and showing work.
I don't know, for me, it's always about the stories that I want to tell. And I found that as a painter, even though I was focused on specific ideas, I really wanted to know who else might be working on those ideas. So it's more that I was more of a curator than I was a gallerist. And it could be that you're right, Ilse, that it's difficult to be a gallerist and focus on sales for artists in addition to being an artist. But I think for the artist that's a curator, at least for me, I just wanted to look around and see what else was out there pertaining to the topics that were really occupying my mind, and see what that community looked like, see what the story shaped, how it changed. So those were my reasons. And I think I'm an accidental gallerist as a result.
Thank you. Who else?
I think it's my galleries are not for profit, so I also decided very soon that I am not good for sales. Maybe because of my art that I like so much, or the artist I am. But being a not for profit, I do think that it's really, really important as an artist to also talk about the artists that I show. And, and also vote and fight for the rights for the artists. We give them relatively good wage. Like, I don't know if anybody has heard of that, but they get just artist fees that are market value, basically. And, we try to really make, even if we are small, not for profit, we really try to do things for the artists and not really, not really for the commercial idea. And I think even as an artist, when you're on a commercial gallery, there might be a lot more love for the artists themselves than, than when you're not an artist, I think. I don't know.
I will say that my own artwork has suffered during the run of the gallery for these last 20 years. I love running my gallery. I love supporting other artists. I love keeping my hand in the arts as well, which is why I do these life drawing sessions weekly. So that has been an extension of my own artwork, mostly is drawing right at this point. But I do think that you have to love to do both at the same time to be able to create a good environment for your own work as well as for your gallery.
I just want to jump in with just another point here, that it's an interesting thing of what you can do and can't do in the art world. You would think an enterprise that's based on creativity would be very liberal. The art world is not liberal at all. The art world is actually extremely conservative. It's, nobody wants to be first to the dance floor. There's a lot of following the lead. It's more like fashion. So, when you start to sort of break the mold, like, are you a gallerist or are you an artist? Are you a critic? It gets really problematic for most people in the art world. They say, what are you presenting here? And so you're really sort of breaking some boundaries when you start saying, no, I'm an artist. Yes, I love to sell art. I'm actually very good at it. I'm also very good at raising money. I've always been very good at that. And I'm also very good at painting. So, I remember it's being batted over the head with, well, you have to do one, you can't do it all. And I think, well, who would be the better person to get behind artists than somebody who's in the war themselves, who really knows the divine struggle that goes into making a painting. I'm really sensitive with my artists. I really know what they're trying to do and how hard it is. And so I come at it from that point of view, but I totally agree with you can't do that. I've been told I can't do that since I opened my first space, which was called Limbo Lounge. What a great name, right? Because it was in 1980, everything was limbo. You know, that was my first space, and it was all the galleries in the 80s in East Village were actually artist-run spaces. Civilian Warfare was run by Dean Savard, who was an artist, and he founded people like David von Rovich. I mean, a whole list of artists came out of that stable that were, you know, really instrumental in sort of moving that whole scene forward. So, you know, maybe we're better at it, maybe.
I find too, you know, coming from that too, that there was at a point in time where the artist-run spaces, there were a lot of them, and those titles, the names, the gallery names were like really like Naked Duck,
Jack the Pelican.
Jack the Pelican. And this is because these were artist-run spaces, and they wanted to have a separate identity at that time. And I think that now, as things have progressed, it's more accepted, right? And there's a lot more, you know, primarily, you know, the name is the title of the gallery. And then Eliza was asking, you know, do you exhibit at the gallery that you are the director of? I mean, for us, we do not really show our own work, you know, because there is a conflict of interest there, right? But only maybe in the case of like really big group show or something like that. But that is the one thing that I can say. It would be very difficult to self-represent at your own gallery. Yeah.
I'm going to move on to my next question. What specific needs does an artist-run gallery serve? A couple of your answers touched on that a little bit, but I want to go deeper if we can or if we should.
I'll take this one. People seem to feel, at least they'll talk to me about it, that oftentimes artist-run galleries, the selection of the work and the sensitivity and how the work is placed and handled seems to be done with a higher aesthetic than oftentimes commercial galleries. And I think it is because for most of us, the sales are second or third down the line, and the quality of the artwork, number one, and then the placement of it, number two, seems to really be more of a priority than sales. So that's my 2 cents.
Interesting.
You know, I want to echo that sentiment that the art world has gotten extremely top heavy, right? That so much of the action and so much of the focus is sort of on this. It's like it's just mirroring the whole world at this point, right? Either you're rich or you're poor. So, you know, I think what artist spaces are doing at this juncture is they're preserving that incubator, which is really, really important. I mean, I want to show, when I say we don't really privilege anything, I do privilege what I think is process, that I'm showing work that is being sort of thought through, that the exhibition becomes part of the practice, that the artist is sort of emerging. And I don't mean emerging meaning I just got an MFA. I mean emerging in an idea or emerging through a practice. And that the exhibition is a really important part of that studio practice, that the work be seen within, which Ellen has touched on a couple of times, within a community setting. So I'm also talking to colleagues. I'm not just talking to patrons. I'm talking to, this is what you need to see as your colleague. We are an association, we're a membership like Ellen's Space. Here's what you need to be supported. And I find that that's really essential. That's what moves culture forward, is that which is raising to the surface that all the artists are then supporting. And then a conversation begins to develop. So for example, we did a show in October with Luton Fire Gallery in Chishama. Christopher saw that show, Christopher Stout. There were two other artists in that show, Alan Hansen and Miguel Fuentes, right? So that became, the three of them got together and said, we need to work together. there's something going on that's worthwhile that we need to bring to the next step. And it wasn't a commercial enterprise. Why would it be? But, it became like this wonderful experiment in dialogue, which is, not what the commercial world can afford to do.
For me as an artist, and working with artists, I can connect with their process. I can connect with their struggles. I understand their directions and their aspirations. Transferring that to collectors and clients, it's a great way to be able to talk to those collectors and encourage them to support these artists. And coming from my own personal directions, it just kind of goes full circle, where you can work with collectors and artists and understand the process a lot deeper.
Yeah, it does seem like as an artist, we have our own community where we have discussions between ourselves and the artist level, right? And then being able to communicate that to collectors and like that sometimes there is a separation there. And we try the best that we can to be able to communicate those like core value of the artist, to bring out that as a way of really, honestly, communicating that. And I think that sometimes in more highly commercially based galleries, you're not going to have that intimacy or the knowledge that you would find at an artist run space, just because, like Randall says, and Michael, that we really talk, we talk with the artist. It's a, more personal relationship.
I've shown Ellen at Equity Gallery, and, we also have a board, and our board is all artists. Like when I first was asked to take on Equity, I did what I thought I was supposed to do. I went out and I sort of encouraged a bunch of rich people to come on the board, and they were just all pain in the asses. So, it was like, well, this is not going to work out. And it wasn't really in keeping with this idea of an artist space. I mean, Patty Fabricant is on the board, and Hey Sung, Married Sung. I mean, they're all artists. And I think that's essential because there's a trust thing. I think that's what we're all getting to. I mean, I trust Ellen Fagan, and I think she trusts me on a level that I don't think a civilian would ever get to, right? I thoroughly trust Christopher Stout and his taste and his intellect and what he's aiming for. I don't have that kind of trust with people that really don't present themselves as artists. There's a whole way of thinking and presenting and moving through the world that's really about, I'm coming at it as an artist. And, Equity Gallery we're an artist space. And then I think for all we used to apologize about it, it's like, why are we apologizing about this? It's like, you're almost like buying the shame that's being presented to you that you're not as serious. We're 3 years ahead of what? Give me an example. So we all pivoted online, right? And I was putting videos up there, right? And then like 2 years down the road, Wurhrer is putting videos up and then making all this noise about it. It's like, well, dude, we were all doing that 2 years ago. So actually, we can risk, we can take risks. That I've worked at commercial establishments. It's a big bet. You can't do that, right? So we can really kind of move faster.
I'm gonna pivot, take that myself, and bring a new question into the mix. I'm sick of saying the C word. So how did the New York City shutdown affect your art practice? How did it affect your gallery? And most importantly, what did you learn?
I guess I'll answer again. I was really fortunate in that I was a part of a group of artists that jumped right in with Christina Massey's USPS art project. And so I started collaborating with other artists right away to create awareness about the importance and the reliability of the U.S. Postal Service, which was under scrutiny during Trump's campaign. And so those collaborations went across the country, that artwork, and was always extremely affordable. And that just kept the hand moving. And then a more personal group of women that I traveled with, we decided to do a postal ready work of art that we shared among 7 of us. And these were accordion books. And so they went from artist to artist, and we would each take a pass on one of these books as they moved around, ultimately 7. And we were able to show that work at Christopher Dam's new space in Bridgeport, Connecticut, Ursa Gallery. So that was number 2. And then number 3, I had a solo exhibition slated for the summer of 2020 up in Torrington, Connecticut at 5 Points. And unbelievably, she kept right on her calendar. I don't think she missed more than 1 month with the lockdown. Very brave programmer. And so I was in the studio quite a bit during the pandemic, and it kept me sane and happy while I was busy developing Odetta Digital, which was a big job as well.
You know, I found that the need for community was exponential, and that really what we needed to do as an association was not sit around and wait, that we should really, if anything, double our efforts. So luckily, right before the pandemic hit, we had already rebuilt our website. We had worked on it the entire summer. So again, that was just like,
Maureen,
just
can
pure
you have
luck
some of
that
that
we were
juice?
able to, so we were able to move pretty quickly with doing online exhibitions, and we didn't wait too long either. I think I was closed down for maybe a month. And then I started doing really fast exhibitions because it looked like, for me, there was a community out there that really needed to be busy, right? Needed to be engaged. So I was doing shows every 2 or 3 weeks, even in other locations, just to really kind of keep it moving. I also, I wish I was having the sales I had then. It was like all these people were at home, nothing to do, and they were buying artwork. I had a great year. I mean, it was sort of, and then also people were giving us money too, because I was like, well, now's the time to give if you're going to give. And people really kind of rose to the occasion. So, I'm kind of missing it all. I was sort of I went into the spring, raring to go. And it's actually slowed up a lot because it's kind of, it just has. But, I think, in any moment where things freeze or they slog down, it just goes back to my other point. We're very nimble artist spaces. We can really move. So, for me, I took it as an opportunity, right? Well, everybody was kind of thinking, what are we going to do next? It's like, well, just do more of what we do.
I had also some terrible experiences, some bad experiences, but I feel like as artists, that is really our strength, that we can see these situations also as opportunities, or figure out how faster than others, how to actually get out of it again. As an artist, I was really lucky because I was just a resident at the Shift residency at the Elizabeth Foundation, and that was really a super supportive group and very helpful to continue working. And as a gallerist here and as a director of the of my organization, was really helpful to actually have a board that could actually a board that's not artist. In my case, it was actually a really helpful thing because now we were able to also get funds that I probably wouldn't have been able to actually get as easily, or it was just a lot to do. And we have also this great space for the problem, because our doors are wide open and we are kind of like an indoor-outdoor space where we could really run our shows relatively fast and have actually a great audience for it. So.
I should do a little piece of housekeeping. We've got some pretty amazing questions coming on in the chat. I think what I'm going to do is let us go with the curriculum that we planned till about 7:05, 7:10, and then we'll open it up and let you guys get the answers that you came here for. And that being said, if there are some questions that you want to be heard, put them in the chat. We'll definitely ask our panel. I should have said that at the beginning, but I definitely want to get your questions addressed as well. So put them in the chat, but let's keep going on. What is the lesson that as an artist you would want to express to other gallerists? And what is the lesson that as a gallerist you wish you could express to more artists?
I think for us, there's this level of professionalism that sometimes artists are not really quite aware of. But being professional artists, you do have to treat yourself as if you are a business owner. And how do you perform, you know, on a social level, and also in your own presentation of your work, you want to have the best quality images and things like that. I think that sometimes there's this romantic notion of the artist that's laboring away in their studio, and then they're magically discovered, you know, somehow. And that's not really the case. You know, I think that being an artist is an incredibly difficult task that, you know, you've selected for yourself, and that you know, as being on both sides, you know, to really take that the business side of it seriously.
I think every artist should curate a show. They should really you really should learn how to do it. First of all, because it's really empowering. And then you can see all the moving pieces that go into it. And I think you'd get a little bit more sensitive. I just want to echo what Kathleen says. I think that, you know, and when I put something out there as a should, you know, the association then gets behind it and offers workshops and lectures and salons. We don't just say this is what you ought to be doing and then not help you. So, you know, you need to have an artist statement. You need to have a portfolio. You all that stuff. Like as a gallerist, I need, because I'm trying to sell your work. I mean, so I can't create that all for you. And that should be, you should need an elevator pitch, like 50 words. Who are you? Like, what are your top images? I mean, it's just all this stuff. You know, it's like, I know it's a horrible word, that branding word. I know it's really horrifying, but it's like, it just lets me do my job, that I can sort of move it through, you know, and then the other thing is like, send the energy back to us. You know, it's like, you got somebody interested in your work, like send it to the gallery. They see what you do is you wind up splitting the audience by not I'm talking about loyalty. Loyalty is really important for me. I work day and night for the artists here because I love them, but I do expect it a little bit back. You know, I do expect a little bit of, you know, let's make a family here. Let's like watch our own. And then what that does is it tells the outside world that like, oh, you know, here's where the business is. Here's where I need to go to make the trade. Here's where the money's got to go. And, you know, otherwise people maneuver around us and then we defeat ourselves.
I don't always agree with that. I think that very often artists express themselves through their medium because their strength is not the elevator pitch, or their strength is not their, writing their resume and sending that out. Like there is just, I think that's what I value in artists, that sometimes they're a little quirky and like maybe not always fitting into the regular, like what is expected of everyone. So I try to be very sensitive and very helpful there, and see if I have an artist whose work I really like, I really try to figure out how I can manage and help, that artist to actually have a really great show at open source, not for their lives, but for that, just for the show at the gallery. I really try to figure out how I can avoid the person to do what they actually don't like to do, but how I can make them do what they really want to do. And that is like show their work and like be involved in that. And often then we try to figure out, so what's, are you comfortable with kids? Are you comfortable with other, like, so we maybe create a workshop or like some kind of other, way of them to communicate with the audience that might not be the same with some artists that are very good in like having an artist talk, right? But some other artists are like just not good at that and are not very happy to do that either. So I don't know. I feel a little different there.
Here's the downside of running an artist space, right? So if you're in a commercial gallery, which has enough money for staff and has a publicist and and the gallery sitters and the one that's doing the content, and then the artist can show up and sort of like hand them the work and like have that all taken care of, right? So I don't have that luxury, and also that's why they're only taking 7 artists, right? And they've got this whole gallery behind it. So I agree with you. I just can't do it all, but I think you can put structures in that sort of help that stuff happen. Like, we do classes in how to write an artist statement. I just don't I don't think you can let artists off the hook and just say, no, they can't do an artist statement. It takes me 4 emails sometimes just to get captions. I mean, what are the MFA programs doing? To not know how to do a caption, it's like, no, you've got, what's the height, what's the width, what's the media? I mean, and you're laughing. Monica, how many emails have you done just to get captions for a show? And you're doing a show with 20 artists, it takes you 55 emails. So again, I'm just asking for help. Like, it would make my life so much easier if you know how to do a caption.
Trust me, we all get frustrated, but I still think that like sometimes maybe artists don't want to do captions because they work against it, right? I don't know. There's so many reasons for things. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was also just saying
we're gonna cry.
Artists should really try to be as professional as they can. That it makes it a lot easier for the curators to work with them, that a lot more opportunities will open up if you're submitting the work, with the, the dimensions as requested, and we all have these artists that we absolutely love, and it's like, okay, they get to get away with that because we love them, but if everybody was like that, then we'd never get anything done, so.
Kathleen, there is an esteemed gentleman sitting next to you, and we started before he could be here. I'm going to ask another question, but I want him to answer it first, but also to like do that intro thing and tell us about your art and a couple of sentences on the gallery. But the question is, what do you think 2022 holds for artists in New York City? What do you think 2022 holds for gallerists in New York City? But introduce yourself first. Ready, set, go.
I just want to interrupt for a second. I just want to remind everybody, this is ATOA, Artists Talk on Art. We're a 501c3. We do have a new section on our website, Art for Sale, where we too are doing a virtual exhibition. You can see all the information on our website. And as well, we have a new format. Our planning committee is back for talks in 2022. If anybody would like to present an idea to the planning committee, we actually have a meeting tomorrow. There is information on our website. If you don't have or you can't find it, you can reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat. Again, we're a 501c3. All our talks are free. If you'd like to contribute, it's obviously welcome. Sorry, but go ahead, sir.
Okay. What were the questions? Front Room Gallery. I started it in 1999 in Williamsburg, and we've been doing it pretty continuously for the last 22 years. Daniel Laycock, I don't know if I said that. And let's see, I have not been as prolific an artist as my wife, Kathleen, who is amazingly prolific, given that we're doing all of this and have a 6-year-old. But yeah. Anyway, I have a master's degree in photography, but I ended up doing a lot of illustration and installation-based work, actually. So it's more kind of crafty than it used to be. And where do we see we're going in 2022? I feel like some of the things that happened during the pandemic kind of already amplified some of the situations that we were heading towards. And it's helpful to have these artist-run galleries because it is starting to feel like without like us in this group here, it's just going to be Gagosian and well, maybe just Gagosian. Like, and there will be no other galleries, but a couple of artist-run galleries. They're like the Walmart of galleries. And I feel like the pandemic kind of did, it forced people to be creative. I think that was interesting. It forced people to kind of band together. But it was hard for the smaller galleries, definitely. Was that all the parts of the question?
It was.
Oh, well, it did push a lot of people to do more online things too, which I think galleries and artists were heading that way, and that people are used to being online in a way that I don't know, they've gotten more comfortable with online stuff. Not to say that brick and mortar is not important, but I think that the pandemic made some things more palatable, that like Zoom meetings, for example. Nobody thinks twice about what we're doing right now. And 2 years ago, it might have been confusing. And okay, that's my answer.
Cool.
You hear my 6-year-old in the background here.
Who else? What do you think 2022 holds for artists in New York City? And what do you think 2022 holds for galleries in New York City?
Well, my own gallery, I know I was shut down for quite a while. And in fact, I just did my first formal show, which was postponed from a year and a half ago. And my artists have all been working heavily during this time. So they've been very prolific and they have a body of work that they want to get out there. So I think we're going to see a lot of amazing work coming out. And again, we're all backlogged on getting shows out just because obviously we weren't able to. But I do think it's going to be kind of an exciting time to just see what this dedicated, isolated time has done for artists and the work that they're producing.
I think there's a real poignancy to what I'm seeing coming out of studios. I think there's a great leveling of what's important and what's not important. And I think a lot of that came out of isolation, losing loved ones, tumultuous politics. I think really we're just really starting to see how that's shaping itself into media, into art installations. It's sort of bubbling up, and I'm really excited to see where that's going. Regarding the city that we are in, for me, I was really very worried going into right before the pandemic, because for me, it was like a canary in the coal mine. My artists were having a very hard time with finding studio spaces and maintaining studio spaces because of the wealth disparity. And I saw that begin to sort of level off a little bit with what COVID did. I'm kind of hoping that will last a bit, because I want to see young artists be able to be in the city. I want to see artists continue to work and to tour and keep in the city and keep that concentration, that focus. And I'm hopeful that will happen, and that more of them will open artist spaces, because that is, that's the groundswell. That's where culture begins. It's at the bottom up. And maybe if there's more of a leveled playing field real estate wise, I'm just hoping it gets and stays a little dangerous, because that will sort of add to that.
I see 2022 as being an opportunity for more collaboration as we all start to get out in physical space, and we're doubled up on the virtual shows. And there could even be art fairs really reemerging. But no matter what, I see it as a real opportunity for experimentation and collaboration, especially interdisciplinary. And some of the questions that I see in the chat still have to do with age-old rules that I don't think that these rules and boundaries necessarily serve creative people. I think most creative people take a rule and say, why is that there? And how can I bust through it and make something new? So I just am excited about the fact that we've all taken really good care of one another. And I think the creative urges have not left. There's going to be more content to discuss, but prices for studios are down. Prices for commercial spaces are down. And to echo Michael's call to curate, I would like to take it up a notch and say that that first year of running Odetta was like getting a PhD and what it means to be an artist. I learned so much about what was important to gallerists as an artist gallerist. And I think every artist should at least curate and handle the PR and everything for at least one show every 2 years, if not run a gallery for a solid year. You will never, ever take those details for granted again. I can promise you, if you ran a gallery. So that's my advice on that. You'll really learn your trade.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other voices?
Okay,
If
back
not,
up.
I'll ask my final question and move to audience questions. The last question I have, I always do sort of a kitchen sink. So we have a room full of esteemed panelists. And as you were getting ready for this or thinking about this, there might have been something in the back of your mind that you were like, I hope I get to say this. Like, this is what I want to say. This is what I feel. This is what I feel I'm passionate about. And it might be that I didn't ask a question that allowed you to fully express your point of view. So is there a question that you wanted to be asked tonight? What was it? And what's the answer? I know it's a little bohemian, but sometimes it makes magic.
I think artists ask, okay, Ellen.
I just think the question is, what's wrong with being a polymath? Is there something wrong with traversing compartments? For me, no. So, okay.
You know, for me, I think artists often asks, you know, what makes a successful exhibition or what makes a successful career? And, you know, and I think early on in this conversation, we started conflating curation with sales as if they're one word, as if they're one thing. And I think they're mutually exclusive. And I think sales are random. And I've been at this a really long time. And I don't think they have really much of anything to do with genuine creativity, exploration, pushing the envelope, disrupting the piece, making intelligent work. It has nothing to do, I know how to sell, has nothing to do with that. Or maybe it does. So for me, I would urge you all as artists, really just to really focus on what your practice is and what your truth and what your voice is, and really just go with that. And then come to Equity Gallery and present your work. Like, get a team together and curate a show, or do it in a storefront. You know, just really let go of this, I need to be successful, I need to sell, I need to brand, and just really focus on what this is. All we've got at the end of the day. And when this is all said and done, it's your work. It's all you have. And, you know, if you can be true to that, you know, the rest of this is just like kind of a fun conversation.
Well, I will add, I'm one of the few, I guess, in this group that is a for-profit. And so I do depend on sales to keep my gallery running. And I do depend on my artists to work with me to make that happen. So I really work hard with my artists before I even exhibit them. And we have to develop a relationship, and we have to work together to make this gallery run. I control it and I run it, and I choose work that I feel is strong, and I'm dedicated to working with my artists to create the best exhibitions possible. But I guess I come from a family-based business, and I grew up in that environment where, my father had employees for 25 years. I treat my artists that way, as a family-based kind of organization where I've worked with some of my artists for 20 years now. And it's good work. I'm watching them grow. I'm watching this gallery change and grow during that time. So anyway, that's where I'm at with my space.
Thank you.
I think, yeah, no, that sounds actually really wonderful, the way you described that. But I just thought of the question. I think for me, I want to do something different than what a commercial gallery can do, right? So I would like to think or hope that as an artist, I can really push the envelope much more than a commercial gallery can do. I'm also not for profit again, and that's what we do. We do political art, and we kind of like really try to be very controversial, I guess, or show art that it can be. But I feel like, I feel very passionate about doing something that I can do as an artist run space that maybe like a commercial one couldn't do. And I really do think that, that would be something that I would hope that all artists really push. When you're an artist, you really want to do something different, right? You don't want to just, I think that's true, that sales is, even if it's a commercial gallery, sales is not your first thing, right? But I really want this to be like, want art to be seen as something that can create change, as something that is more important than what we are talking about now. Or not, but yeah, but that, like, it's not just the how to deal with artists, how to do this, how to do that, and how to manage it. It's really about what we really want with it, and how, how we see art to be seen, and what can art really do, right? I think that's my questions that I always ask myself.
I love it. All right, it's 7:15. We have roughly 15 minutes left. And with that time, I'm going to start down the line of questions that have been fielded by people in the chat.
Just one moment, Christopher. Daniel
Yes.
wanted to mention one more thing before we move on to the comments, if that's okay.
I love it. Let's hear it.
It's funny, because I started to speak up and then I realized that Kate had me muted.
I muted it.
So, yeah, I don't know if anybody mentioned this earlier, but I think one thing about the whole artist and gallerist relationship, that being on both sides of it, we all kind of know, is that the trust issue is really important. Like, the art world is not a very transparent place, and all kinds of weird stuff can happen on both sides, and you really have to be able to trust. I mean, we've had artists that we couldn't trust. We've dealt with galleries we couldn't trust. We try and make sure everybody we have a relationship trusts us, and we can, relate to them. And I think that that's one thing that maybe as an artist, gallerist, that we all might do that's a little bit better than, people that are just doing one side or the other. I don't know if somebody mentioned that earlier, but I was just thinking about that one.
Cool. All right, let's do these audience questions. There are 3 versions of this. A couple came into my DM, but there seems to be a lot of queries around showing your own work in space. Let me find one and read it. Gallerists I know in this panel, both nonprofit and for-profit, don't necessarily show themselves in their space. Do they have a line about this? Can you talk about this? What's your policy on this? How did you come to this decision?
Well, we at the Front Room Gallery, we represent 22 artists. So, and of the 22 artists, we have neither one of ourselves as one of the represented artists. Because, you know, it's all this building the relationship. It's very difficult to have an honest relationship with yourself about your own artistic career. And that is where, you know, being an artist run space, you can't be both roles at exactly the same time, right? So for us, unless it's a very large group show, we don't include our own work in the gallery exhibitions.
I would like to say that very early on, I witnessed an artist at an art fair, which will remain unnamed, and also the artist, because some of you probably know them, in a booth where she also had her own work, and but it was a gallery booth, and I overheard her talking about herself to this collector in the third person, like, oh, this artist does this. And she was going into great detail about what she did as if she was another person. It's really pretty hilarious. I never would want to end up in that situation.
You know, there's been a little bit of pushback here about whether artists can be gallerists, right? We're kind of questioning that. And the art world does too. And we have to be very mindful that we don't come across as a vanity operation. So, and that's something, you know, that I've worked very hard to turn around. You know, I pay rent, I have bills to pay. I mean, it's all non-for-profit, but, you know, all that comes, I don't touch the money I fundraise. That goes into the bank so that artist equity is here well after I'm gone. So all that fundraising doesn't go into, I run the space. It goes into funds. And so I don't show myself because it would just, that is pushing so far against what the art world would accept that it would appear as a vanity operation. That being said, if you're an artist curator and you're coming in and you present a project, I'm perfectly okay with you showing your work because you're exploring a relationship with other artists, and that's how we present it. That this is a thematic exploration that you are, you know, sort of exhibiting to sort of flesh out even further. Again, we're much about using exhibition as a process to flesh this idea out further. So of course that is, so you can have your cake and eat it too at Equity is what I'm saying. But no, I would not show my own work. That would be, but Kathleen can if she want, and Ellen can if they want. So.
Yeah, I agree too with you about it's interesting that sometimes we recommend to artists to curate exhibitions on topics and then put themselves in that show. But that wouldn't be the case if it was a space that you were running yourself, I feel like, because again, that's a conflict of interest. But to pitch your show at someone else, another space as a curator, yeah, I think that's a great way to explore, you know, topics that you're working on and have discussions with other artists.
But I have put out call to entries for curation projects, and I specifically asked artists not to put themselves in because it was much about learning how to be a curator. Like, so I really needed them to divorce their practice from those shows, and we've done those 3 times, and the second time we did it, Artsy actually picked it up. So I think it was very successful. So I'm also talking, seems like out of the other side of my mouth, but I do think as an artist, you probably do at some point want to curate an exhibition and don't put yourself in it. Just see if you can establish that sort of separation.
The next question on the chat is, if selling is not a priority for some of your galleries, how do your artists feel about this? Is it clear to the artist that selling is not your main priority?
Well, I think it depends on I mean, each one of us comes from a different situation. I mean, we are at Front Room Gallery, we're a commercial gallery. And of course, sales are important. But is that the primary focus? I think that all the artists, I would hope that they would agree that the quality of the work and the concepts that we're presenting should really be the primary thing. And then, yeah, we want to sell out every show.
Well, I mean, there's rent.
Yeah. There's that little pesky thing.
Salaries.
I think, for an artist, it's just important that you go in realistically with expectations. What you really want this to come out of. Again, we're often showing work that's experimental. We're showing artists that are emerging, whatever point that is in their career. I mean, trying to conflate that with sales, it's a bit of a conflict. I really want to sell, and I work really hard at selling and placing work. No, I'm an artist too. I don't want to bring work back to my studio after an exhibition. So we're actually very sensitive to that, but you just have to be realistic about, what you can see happen. And we don't not sell. I have to. I mean, I've got rent to pay, and that can come from funds. I'm not allowed to do that. So, we're all actively selling, but, our primary purpose is to get work out there and get you exhibited. And, and that means we're making a big bet, and maybe bigger bet than a commercial person would say, I can't show you because I can't sell you. And we're just not saying that. We're saying we're going to do both. And that's actually a taller order.
I think selling work is really, really important for artists. I mean, that's how everybody survives, right? So even for us, where we don't sell work, we are super happy that our artists then maybe afterwards get a gallery or like move galleries, or like if something happens with their sales, that's for us really, really important, right? But we definitely do pay our artists. So they make an installation, they make a workshop, they make an artist talk, they get paid. So everything they do, like materials get paid, all of that, we get our funding through grants and through fundraising, right? So we get grants from state, federal, city, but also foundations, and we are also obviously fundraising for.
Oh, Monica, don't you have a fundraiser coming up really soon?
Yes, and Kate is actually also on the artist board to get artists involved. Yes, we have one coming up end of November. So I can give you more information about that afterwards.
Maybe type it into the comments so people can get that link, Monica.
Ping me, Kate. I'm definitely in. I don't care what it is. I want to be a part of it. The next question. Oh, this is great. Ellen, give me 30 seconds, not anymore. I would like to know more information about cobalt blue. Is it in a tube or in a powdered pigment, and who makes it?
Yeah, well, I'd love to keep some mystery around my paint
You can do that.
So I will say it is commercially available, and you're going to have to go hunting for it.
Cool. Leah wants to know if any of you participate in art fairs, either national or international.
Yes, we've done spring break a few times. So, and I would like to do more. I mean, I'm of two minds about fairs. Sometimes I think they take the gas out of the gallery, especially if you're a small space. But I found the halo effect of being in spring break was good for the gallery. It introduced us to a lot of artists. It broadened our reach. it was a crazy amount of work, so I don't do it all the time. It's also expensive. It's very expensive.
Yes, art fairs are extremely expensive, but that's part for us as far as our programming. That's something that we build into our annual costs of operating. We were one of the founders of Fountain Art Fair. So I mean,
Maybe we could talk about founding art fairs too.
yeah, we could talk about founding art fairs. Yeah. I think that things have changed a lot with the art fairs themselves, like over the years, that it's become a very different thing. That when they first started, it was a great way to have like kind of a global marketplace for people to come and purchase. So, purchases there, but that was the primary thing, was to sell the work, but also to get publicity for artists, that we could really have an international audience. It's like built into that system. But over the years, there's so many more satellite fairs that came up that kind of diluted that like initial, like, this is the initial offering, like this is the newest thing. And then it was like, I've seen that before, and I've seen that before. And the cost became so high that people weren't willing to have risky work, that you would go to the armory and it was, kind of boring, right? So yeah, yes. Right.
Yeah, I concur that it's gotten really formulaic, but I think we should take Ellen's lead and put together a multimedia, multidisciplinary. I mean, I think a fair that had dance in it and music in it, I mean, I would jump on that. But I agree, it's very expensive. It has gotten, I can't tell one from the other, except one says it's more trendy than the other, but I don't really think it is. So I think it's time to like do a new one, something totally new and different, and get music in there and performance. And I think that would put the fire under it again and make it what it was supposed to be, which is more of a happening.
And now there's all these, experience, the art experience, experiential things, that's like that. I feel like that's a new future direction that people should be looking at. Like where are we going? Is to that. We've been all separated, because of social distancing, that people want to have this like immersive experience, right?
Yeah, Randall should have like life drawing in it, like lots of naked, beautiful people with Ellen's rock band playing, something like that, and lots of beer.
And lots of cobalt blue.
Lots of cobalt blue.
To remain a secret. No,
You have to sign an NDA.
I think though, also with the art fairs, my feeling on art fairs, when I used to walk through them before I ran Odetta, I found them mind numbing. It was almost like being under a lot of fluorescent lighting. At a certain point, my brain just went dead. I think that's sort of my MO. If I can't think when I'm in the thick of it, if I can't imagine and want dialogue, there's something intrinsically uncreative about that space for me, and hard to justify the money at that point. You're putting a lot of energy and money into something that nowadays it's hard to make those art fairs really pan out because there's so many. So I looked at the digital marketplace as my anecdote to choosing not to do a lot of art fairs. I felt that it was reaching the same audience most likely, and I wasn't having to pay double rent in that moment while being at an art fair and keeping Odetta open. So that was my solution to it. And once in a while, like you say, Michael, you get this halo effect from certain art fairs that are good for PR for the gallery. But by and large, for me, by the end of 2019, I wasn't very interested in the art fairs anymore.
So at 7:31, oh, sorry, Randall, I interrupted you.
No, it's all good. Keep going.
No, I want to hear what you have to say.
I was just going to agree with her. And I've not done art fairs, was cost prohibitive for me. And I was fortunate enough that I also I deal with secondary market work, 20th century work. So not only did that help me, subsidize the gallery, it also helped me during the pandemic as well, actually. So as far as art fairs, it just wasn't in the cards for me at that time, just because I had other outlets.
Christopher, would you like to say some last words and then I'll do a little conclusion?
I think my last words would just be thank you. I really appreciate the panelists jumping in for bringing their perspective, their histories, their insider information, their knowledge, and their kindness. And I hope that this was a good learning for the people in the room, and also make sure to go to the ATOA website, because you can find links and information about the people that did talk. If you want to, there were some really juicy questions that came in towards the end of it. So if you're burning and you need to know, you could reach out and ask them directly. And I also want to thank everyone so much, including Linda, that put this together, for forging this opportunity. And that's all I have.
Well, I want to, on behalf of ATOA, I want to thank you, Christopher Stout and Linda DeGusto. Great job, both of you, putting together a dynamic panel. And Christopher, I'd be amiss if I didn't say you did a beautiful job moderating. The way we do it at ATOA, we clap for everyone. I do want to make a few comments. First off, we all know the disadvantage of being a gallerist artist. The time takes away from your ability and your time to create your own art. But there is an advantage. As a gallerist artist, you meet other gallerists and can get into shows. I've seen it happen amongst gallerists that are here, where they meet other gallerist artists. So it can help your career, because another gallerist will look at you a little differently. I'd like to point out the Metropolitan Museum does a thing where they reach out to very famous artists to look through their stacks and curate a show. And it's a show that always blows the lid off curation, because the artist will look a little differently at groups of work, and they'll put things together quite differently. We hit on one of the 3 C's, and everybody kept asking sales, which really means collectors. But the 3 C's in art tend to be collectors, critics, and curators. And so if you have a show, yes, the artist needs money, they need sales, but they also need critics to write them up so they can get future shows that will do that will get them sales. And of course, they need to meet curators. So it's a nice way to see, are you performing all the 3 C's? And my own personal point is, I wouldn't eat at a chef's restaurant if the chef doesn't eat. And so similarly, I want art writers and gallerists to be artists, because cerebrally, you can know a lot about art, but you don't know a line until you've drawn one. And you don't know what expressionism is until you've done it and struggled with it to some degree. And I think as an artist, you get a deep insight to what you're doing. And that's why artists, gallerists can relate very directly to artists, and artists get that. They get that you understand on that artist level, and I think it's very important. I want to thank everybody. This is ATOA. We meet every Monday, just about. You can visit our website and see our calendar. This talk will end up on our YouTube channel. We are a 501c3. If you'd like to contribute, we greatly appreciate it. All of our talks are free. We do have a planning committee meeting coming up tomorrow. If you have an idea, or even if it's not tomorrow and down the road you have an idea, look through our website. You'll see emails and information, and we'll send you a form that you can complete. I'd recommend all you artists do what was recommended. Go out, try and curate a show. Or, when you can't get shows and exhibits, maybe you do open a gallery. That's a way to subvert the system. Maybe when you can't get critics to write about you, you become a writer. And so it's a way in to the art world. And yes, you're breaking rules. There definitely are issues about artists, gallerists that then show their work more than sporadically in group shows. So that's an issue, but often the rules are to break the rules. Alfred Stieglitz had an incredible gallery. I'm not sure if he showed his work there, but there are always exceptions to the rule. I want to thank you all. Keep coming back. Such a pleasure. I can't say what a nice talk. Linda DeGusto and Christopher Stout. And of course, not only the artists and gallerists that presented, but to everybody who came, listened, shared ideas. That's what it's about. That's what it's about when you have a gallery and people come together for an opening. There's this sort of, it's hard to describe, but we all love doing that because we are part of something. We're part of a group. And what you guys did today is you brought a group together, and what everybody did here by listening, by sharing, we formed a little hive. I always like to refer to us as a hive or a clan, and we definitely grew in ways. We got ideas. Maybe we didn't learn how to find cobalt blue, but we definitely got ideas. And many of you, I think we all contribute. That's my point. Thank you so much. This was great, guys.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Right,
you.
wonderful. Thank you.
It was a great conversation.
Thank you.